Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
Definitely that time of the year. A lot of us hitting the woods, maybe taking some vacation and such. Oh, my wife's uncle said he was taking 2 weeks off. You know him, Tim Kaiser. 2 weeks off for bow hunting. So, I mean, he's a diehard there. So, okay. Yeah. But that's that time of year for everybody right now, hitting the woods, and perfect time to bring back our guy, Mr. Tim Kaiser. How you doing, man?
Good.
Good.
How about you?
Not bad, man. You already tagged out early though this year.
Did.
So, but tell us a little bit about that, because I think we haven't talked to you since then.
No, I don't think so.
That was your target buck, and you got it opening weekend, right?
Target buck opening day. I mean, it never happens like that, right?
Yeah, right.
So, no, it was a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. It's bittersweet. Right away, it's exciting, but then it becomes bittersweet because you're like, I haven't been in the woods in a month and a half, and you wait all year for this. So I'm anxiously awaiting gun season.
Yeah, no doubt. So, so that might actually be a good question. You know, you tag out early. What do you do to get ready for maybe rifle season coming up? A lot of the same stuff. If you maybe didn't tag out and such, just still a lot of scouting and that. What's it been like for you?
Yeah, for me, the biggest thing is my dad's still out there hunting on our property, so trying to almost think of what I would be doing and try to get him to do some of those things. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, you're monitoring those trail cameras. If you're on a property you can hunt by yourself and you've tagged out, then maybe you can do a little more of that scouting on the ground because you're not so worried about pushing deer around. Right. And then just mostly focusing on getting that set up for rifle season. So multiple wind directions. I can hunt different stands. If I need to do something, I'll do it now, get ready, get the gun sighted in, and then just count down the days, really.
How different with the ruts going on now? I mean, in our conversations before, we've talked about movement and patterns and setting up. Do you kind of throw that out the window when it becomes the rut?
It's chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why a lot of times you'll hear people say if they are after a target buck, you really are trying to get it done before the rut. And that's not to say that you can't still shoot that deer. But if you're trying to pattern them and feel like you have a very good idea of what they're going to do, that time has passed.
Yeah.
Now it's just all about where are the does, is there a hot doe nearby? And it could be great 1 second and it can be ghost town the next. So you just have to be patient.
Would you say it probably depends on different areas. You know, because I've seen it's the seeking portion of the rut. It's the chasing portion of the rut. Is there one segment or area of that you would say is maybe a little bit easier or better to target, or is it still kind of up in the air at that point?
It can depend on how you like to hunt, where you're set up, those kind of things. I personally like the beginning part of rut, more of that seeking, chasing phase, more like the last couple days of October into the first couple days of November. That's just my personal preference. Now we're kind of getting past that, and we're getting close to that peak breeding phase where the majority of does are now in estrus, and that those patterning periods are behind us. Like I mentioned, it's really going to be focus on those doe groups and try to get close to them.
I gotta add, this is something I've always pondered. Have you tried it before in the past? The tinks, the scents, scrapes. Is that something that you've employed? Have you had success? Is that something you always kind of look for? Or what are your thoughts on those type of products?
I think this time of year, it's the time to be aggressive. It's the time to try different things.
Yeah.
I'm not a big scent guy. I haven't had a lot of success with it. I tried it more in the past. I really don't do it at all anymore. But there's some people who have a lot of success with it. So I'm not to say that it doesn't work. It's just not what I do typically.
That's what I feel like it a lot of people are either or on it.
Yeah.
They've gotten examples from either side. No, I never use it, but look at what I got. Or, this one came in directly to this. So they're going to continue to probably use that, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's kind of the same thing, rattling, grunting. Those can be, great tools. And for some people, they work really well and some they don't. But I think with all of those things, we have a little bit of confirmation bias too, right? So if you put out the scent that day and maybe that deer was going to come by regardless.
Right.
All of a sudden in your head, you're like, hey, this is the key, and I'm going to keep doing it. And that's all right. But, I don't think there's a end-all, be-all as far as a scent goes.
That's what has me nervous. Like you mentioned the grunting and the rattling. Like, what if I do it wrong? Or what if that's what makes me nervous to go out there and do it. And then, we've got Big Worm sending me a picture with his buck. Yeah, snort wheeze, grunted it in and such. And it's like, I feel like if I do that, though, I'm going to, screw it up. Do you grunt? Do you use that method?
I was the same as you, honestly, Dan.
Okay.
and I've kind of flipped. So, like I said, I used to try scent, and I kind of went away from that. And I used to not rattle much at all because I was the same. I'm like, well, I don't want to do it wrong and then push the deer further away.
Right.
But as I've learned more about how deer are moving during the rut. You're going to want to do it. You're going to want to be loud. You're going to want to make a lot of commotion. And you know what? Those deer are moving constantly. So if they're close by and they hear it and they're interested, they're going to come in. And if they're not going to come in anyway. You know, it's not going to force them to run a county over.
Right.
So don't be afraid to make some of those mistakes, or don't be afraid of making a mistake, because it's going to be new deer all the time moving through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember one time I think I was still in high school. The tip can, I was addicted to that because it worked once.
Yeah, the old doe in a can.
Yeah, I was a ground blind. It was during gun season. Nothing was moving, so I got up and I just kind of walked towards the river. Came back and I saw one jump away. Of course, the one time I get up to go walk around, it's there. So I grabbed my tip can and did it, and it actually came back.
Yeah.
So then I was like, oh, that's the best call in the world. Ask me how many I've gotten after it. It kind of goes back to what. But again, I don't know if I'm the moment and just if maybe it just doesn't work all the time, sort of thing. You know what I mean?
It is. It's not going to work every time. It's probably going to work a very, very low percentage of times, actually. But it can be the thing that can pull a deer in. And I would say, too, with any kind of calls, whether it's grunting, rattling, I have found them to be way more effective if I'm in an area that's very thick, where you can't see a long ways.
Okay.
Because deer are very good at pinpointing exactly where a sound comes from. So if you're on an edge of a field or a food plot and they're 120 yards away and you make that sound and they can see, hey, I heard that. That sounded like a buck, but I'm looking. There's no buck there. They're probably not going to come over and investigate, or they're less likely. Now, if you're in a thicket and there's one trail leading past your stand and that deer is 80 to 100 yards away and they can't see where that sound is coming from, they're going to want to visually confirm, and that might be more likely that they're going to come into where you are.
Okay. Interesting. So, Tim Kaiser, by the way, joining us, Whitetail Partners. If you've got a question, text it on over to us, 715-830-1912. Actually, I think we just got one that popped in. Yeah, actually from Mark. Quick question, if not too late. In my stand up north yesterday, I was glassing a couple of does when a nice buck goes screaming past me after them. Didn't have time to even pick up the bow that quick. Any possibilities to get them to stop? A call, a whistle, etc.?
Sometimes it has to be really loud this time of year. I mean, sometimes it's literally saying, hey, and trying to stop them.
Yep.
They kind of go brain dead, especially if there was does nearby. Yeah, don't be afraid to be really loud. They're going to put the brakes on, hopefully, and then you'll have a chance. But there's also times I've whistled at deer and they just keep right on walking. You can't believe it.
Yeah. I mean, I remember one time one was just such on a tear. Like there was a freight train. It wasn't going to stop, going through that. Which this past weekend, I was going, and I actually it was a nice one come through too far and that, but there was actually a little buck trailing with it too. Is that kind of common in the beginning portions of the rut to see a couple bucks together? And it was the smaller one was following the bigger buck at this point too.
Yeah, and I don't know. I wouldn't say that they're following each other in that sense that you're going to have a couple bucks kind of stick by each other. But the reality is that the areas they're targeting to move through, all those bucks are thinking the same thing. They're going to target those same areas, and it could be just coincidence they move through at the same time. Could be also that there was a receptive doe nearby at that time. And so it's not uncommon. You talk to hunters and they haven't seen anything for 6 hours, and all of a sudden 3 or 4 bucks show up in the span of 20 minutes.
Right.
So, and that very well could have been the case there. Is there was something nearby, a receptive doe that pulled them both in, and maybe that smaller buck was being a little more submissive and hanging out a little further back.
Right. Trying to take advantage of it. Trying to swoop in at the last second sort of thing. So what do you think is maybe from hunters you've talked to or something you've experienced, something that hunters do wrong the most common, kind of during the rut, or maybe a misconception when it comes, because I mean, I've seen a lot of people even this last weekend finally saying, this is the first time I'm going out, and I know we've talked about early on because they wait maybe to go to the rut. What are some of those mistakes or misconceptions when it comes to the rut?
I think the biggest misconception during the rut is that when you get in the stand, it's just this parade of deer all day, every day going past your stand. And I kind of alluded to this earlier, but it's really usually pretty quiet with these periods of excitement and activity in between. And it's easy to get down if it's like, I've been out here for 4 hours, I saw one deer, I saw one doe come through, and then maybe want to move stands or get down for the day. But just being aware that it's not just this all-day craziness. It's more about just putting in the time and understanding if you're in the right position, eventually that one opportunity might come by.
If you have a mobile stand, and you've got a line of scrapes, is that something you want to target, like a climber stand or something like that? Or how does the early season, your setup compared to where it is now, if you can be a little mobile?
Yeah, being mobile is great. I use a saddle myself a lot of times. Scrape line specifically, I'm probably moving past that at this point.
Okay.
You're seeing sign that was really primarily focused on for those bucks probably a week ago to 2 weeks ago. Now I'm not forgetting sign. I mean, sign is always relevant because it shows where deer were. But now I want to know where they're going to be, and that's going to be tight to those doe bedding areas on the downwind side. We can talk about that more if you want. Pinch points where deer have to move through. And sometimes those are really, really overlooked, and that's where being mobile can be really helpful. Maybe you're sitting in the woods and you just see, gosh, I saw 3 bucks 120 yards away move through the same spot. To me, you might not see those same bucks the next day, but that's a clue to me that I want to move a little closer to that because there's some kind of feature there that's causing deer to really be concentrated to one movement pattern, and then that's where I'd get right on top of it and be aggressive the next day.
Big Worm actually just sent a message. Morning, guys. What's up, Timmy? A couple of softball legends on the air. He said, I also forgot I used a buck decoy that brought my buck in when hunting an open picked field or a crop field. I found that works along with grunting. Love the program. So
he's spot on. And what we talked about before in that open field setting where they want to visually confirm what they heard, now you're giving them that confirmation. You're giving that opportunity to come in, or giving them a reason to come in. So we should have him in to give the tactics that time. He's got it. Yeah.
Our friend Mark with a really cool picture. I sent a picture earlier this morning from his son who lives on the Chippewa River. Had 2 bucks in his yard. One decided to take a swim across the river, chasing does on the other side, perhaps. You think possible that far away?
There's does on the other side.
Yeah.
There's very little they won't do this time of year to get there.
Yeah. I've seen, one time when it was deer or gun season, again, I was ground blind, and where I was next to the Yellow River, actually.
Yeah.
And I would always just kind of walk over and just kind of seeing that. When I walked over there, saw 2 deer walking across the river at that point, too. So it's cool to see them swim and go through water like that.
Yeah, I've never seen it, but I've heard stories, and there's some studies about deer that have gotten to certain islands, and you look at it, like how did a deer population ever establish here? I mean, they can swim a long ways.
Right. Yeah. So that's a really cool picture, though. I showed it to
awesome.
Showed it to Tim here too. So all right, Saturday. I mean, weather looks like it's going to get a little colder and such. Is that going to be a nice day to go out there? Or really, if you're looking to head out in the woods and such, would you tell people to go this Saturday?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Now, let me first say there is no such thing as a bad day this time of year to go in the woods. I mean, it can happen anytime, but I think everybody who hasn't filled a tag yet is excited about this Saturday. I mean, you're in that peak of the rut. It's a great time to be in the stand Saturday, so hopefully most people are off work.
Yeah.
You said you're going to get out, and then that big cold front coming in. Deer move all the time during the rut, and the breeding takes place at the same time every year, so it's not weather dependent. But studies consistently show, there's been some studies with radio collared deer, that movement does increase almost by 50% when you get abnormally cold weather during the rut. So they spend a little less time bedded, they spend more time on their feet, and I mean, you think about even if it's 30 or 40 yards an hour over the course of the day, they can travel a lot further and maybe get past your stand that they wouldn't have otherwise. So it's going to be a great day.
So would that maybe help, like for my instance, trail cam, they're still coming at night. Maybe that makes them move a little bit more during the shooting hours?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Interesting. So, all right, you just kind of convinced. I was wondering if I should go Saturday or not, but I'm like, okay, yeah, you convinced me.
If you can get out this Saturday, you got to do it.
All right, I'm going to tell my wife you said that.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not your choice. Yeah, I'm forcing you to do
it. Can you write me a permission slip to go out there? So, kind of looking at these next couple of weeks here too, what are some of the other things that maybe you would remind hunters, or a couple notes that or topics that you want to hit up before maybe this weekend or as the rut kind of progresses here?
Yeah, we're really, like I mentioned, in that peak of movement. I think once you get to that second full week of November, you're going to start to see your cameras slow down a little bit. You're going to see probably fewer deer in the stand. And don't worry about that. That's normal. What you're seeing there is there's so many does and estrus. Most of the bucks are locked down with a doe.
Okay.
And once they're with that receptive doe, they're going to be with her for up to 24 hours. So they they're going to break away at times, but they're not moving all day like they are now. So this is the time to be in the stand. Once that little bit slower period comes in, it just means you have to put more hours in because you just don't know when during the day they're going to break loose. And I guess that probably brings me to the other point there, which is if you can sit all day is best, right? But I would say if you're going to sit either like the first half of the day or the second half of the day, I would sit from morning and try to sit till like 1 p.m.
Okay.
If you only have half a day to give to it, because there's that big spurt of movement, this secondary movement that happens between like 11 and 1 that I think a lot of hunters miss out on because they get out there super early and then they're out at 9.
Yeah.
And then they're going to try to go back again at 2, and you just missed some of the best movement of the day.
I've seen people talk about that, because I think it's, or you're going back in for lunch or something like that, you just kind of figure, oh, that's the midday, so nothing's moving around sort of. How much do you factor in like the moon phase?
That's an interesting one.
Yeah.
There's some people that swear by it, and not just moon phase, but like, moon overhead or underfoot.
Yep.
You talk about like fishermen and some of those things, and they think about the same things, feeding times. Certainly there's no scientific data that says absolutely that's what's happening or causing it, but there's so many anecdotal, stories out there of people seeing success with that and, using it consistently. I have to imagine there's some correlation. I couldn't tell you what it is.
Right. Yeah, because I see, you get the Fish and Game forecast and it tells you the peak times and all that. And I've always wondered like how, and I'm sure you could probably Google it and such, how accurate that is. And again, maybe it's kind of like the scent thing. For some people, it really works because they've had success with it. And others, it's probably like, no, nothing there.
Yeah, and it goes back to a little bit of that bias. If that's the reason that you get out in the stand and you're spending more time in the stand on those days, well, yeah, you're going to see more deer on those days than other times. So you got to keep that in mind too.
So would you say kind of where it's at, and I know we got rifle season coming up yet in a couple of weeks, would that maybe timeline-wise coincide with like the post-ruts or somewhere maybe at the back end of that?
Back end of the rut, yeah. Okay. Yeah, and that second week of gun season – depends on, gun season in general in Wisconsin really depends on where you're hunting because all that human intrusion and all the commotion and the gunfire, that can kind of throw a wrench in things as far as movement. Now, it doesn't stop the rut. They're still gonna behave the same. They're still gonna breed, but that behavior might shift to more specific, smaller areas or nocturnal movement and behavior because of that pressure. Now, that being said, it still happens. And that kind of that post-rut can actually be a really good time to hunt, too, because if you think about the number of does that were in estrus 2 weeks earlier, there's a ton, right? They don't have to go very far to find one. Now it's down. It's kind of dwindling down to the last few does that are in estrus. They actually have to travel further than they were during the rut because they're trying to seek out just that 1 or 2 does that are left. So that can be a great time to be in the woods, too. Okay,
interesting. We do have another question coming in here. Morning, guys. Enjoying this conversation. I don't have the ability to move around and be mobile with my stands, but I've got plenty set up. Where would you recommend to kind of post up when it comes to the rut? Is it trails? Is it food sources? Does one have the advantage over the other?
Yeah, I'm all travel corridors this time of year. Find areas where deer are moving through and where that movement gets concentrated.
Okay.
The classic would be the downwind side of a bedding area. So if you can picture a bedding area with let's say there's a north wind. Okay, so then there's the bedding area. If you can get south of that bedding area and then further south of a trail that's on the south side of that bedding area. So if you picture it, the wind is blowing from the bedding area to the trail and then to you. So the deer is not going to smell you, but they're going to prioritize that travel route where they don't have to go into the bedding area. They can smell everything that's in there without ever stepping foot in it. And you'll have a lot of bucks moving past in that area. But the other one is some of those small little funnels. It could be like a little tiny strip of timber along a fence line that connects 2 big blocks of timber.
Okay.
Be an awesome one this time of year. So it's not the food source that might be nearby. It's that cover that connects larger areas of woods.
So would you say right now, not to say it's not important, but food source locations maybe not as important at this just because everything's kind of, they're running all over the place at this point?
Yeah, there's food sources are always a draw. Deer have to eat, whether they're rutting or not. Even those bucks have to eat, and it can concentrate does in those areas so it can still be effective. And guys are going to shoot deer over food plots all the time. But for me, personally, I like to get in that thicker cover, and I like to get on those travel corridors.
I know you put one in. Like, would water sources be a good one because of the running around?
Yeah, and we talked about that a lot. Water sources are great year-round.
Mm-hmm.
This is another one of those times when you can prioritize it, because as bucks are putting on the miles, they need to up their water intake a little bit. They're going to, if there's 2 trails and one has a water hole and one doesn't, they might prioritize that one.
Mm-hmm.
To your listener's question, too, though, I did want to say this. He had mentioned he has a lot of different stands, which is good because you can move around depending on wind direction. But I would say one thing that I think people maybe do wrong is if they spend half a day in a stand and it's really slow, they jump to another stand and they jump to another stand, and you're kind of chasing your tail. My philosophy is you want to put a good day or 2 sit in a stand that you feel good about, because of knowing eventually those deer are going to move through, instead of you bounce away and then they come through after that.
Right. I'm guilty of doing that before too, because you kind of get frustrated, right? Just like, come on now, like, okay, maybe this one will work better or something like that.
Yeah, and there's a fine line between being stubborn and never moving on, but I think you got to commit to giving it a chance.
Right, exactly. So I've always heard this, and I know we got to take another break coming up here, but like at this time of year too, when I was younger, I was always told, okay, if you see a doe, wait, because you never know what's going to be behind it.
Yeah.
Is that a good saying, good old adage at this time of year? Like, if you see a doe, wait, because or get ready, I should say, because there might be something behind it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, anytime you have a doe out there, that's always a good situation for you. And yeah, I mean, deer can close that distance quickly. You might not have any idea they're there. So stay on alert as soon as there's a doe around and be ready to roll.
So I want to go back to really quick rattling. Have you had success rattling? Is that something you do a little bit more this time of year?
Yeah, I would. Obviously, I'm not hunting right now.
What? No,
I know. A little humble brag. No, I'm kidding. I have personally had more success grunting than rattling.
Okay,
but I still do it. And so it's that one. It only has to work once, right? It can not work all day, but it has to work once.
Would you do buck or doe, or does it kind of depend?
For a decoy?
Yeah, for decoy, probably.
Yeah. I typically do a buck this time of year.
Okay.
But again, I think it's a preference thing.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Well, Tim, thanks for stopping by and hanging out for a while.
Yeah, thanks for having
us.
me.
We're going to do this more often on Thursday mornings too. So keep those questions. Thanks to everybody sending over questions too.
That was great.
With that, and send us your photos too if you have any luck. We got to get you on before the opener though too.
Let's do it. Yeah, let's talk gun season. There's always a bunch of stories and some tactics we can talk. But good luck this weekend.
Thanks, man. You'll be one of the first ones. I'll let you know if I have any luck.
Awesome.
If not, then I'm going to yell at you. No,
that's fair.
All right, Tim. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. Catch up with our warden friend, Mr. Jake Boakes. Jake, I think you're still muted if you can hear me over there. So we'll see if there we go. Jake, how you doing, bud? Jake, you there?
There we go. Can you hear me?
Yep, I got you now, bud.
Okay.
How you?
It says that I turned the old mute button off, but I'm doing good. How about you?
Not bad, man. Seeing some more of those deer with antlers running around and on the trail cameras and on the roads and such too. So rut's really getting here, bud.
The rut's popping. I was just listening to a podcast the other day where one of the individuals stated that doesn't matter what state you're in or what you're hunting necessarily, what kind of deer, but November 8th is like the prime day. That was one person's opinion, but that's Saturday, and it sure is looking like that. You're not wrong. There's plenty of dead deer on the road. There's plenty of deer on the trail cameras, plenty of deer being harvested out during the daylight. So if you have time and you want to go hunting, this is a great week, and especially with a really cold front coming through.
Absolutely. Well, we got a couple questions right away. Should we jump into it, sir?
Yeah. For sure.
All right. We had a question from Rodney a little bit earlier. He was asking, can an unlicensed person go on deer drives if they don't carry a weapon?
So the answer to that is yes. A person there, you don't have to have a license or anything to be like an observer or to just be with people that are actively legally hunting. So, anyone can go sit out in a tree stand with someone else who's hunting. Anyone can sit in a duck blind. Anyone can go fishing on a boat or can be on a boat while someone else is fishing. The key is that that person has to have a distinct separation from the act. So that person in no way should have a gun with them. if they have a license, there's no possible way that the person, if they're unlicensed walking through the woods, would ever register any of the deer after the fact, would ever, just have any part to do with it. They can walk. Anyone can legally just walk through a county forest, whether they're part of the deer drive or not. The main thing is that they just don't get involved with any of the hunting or any of like the licensing and stuff like that. If you're a part of that deer drive, everyone should make sure that they have the appropriate, that person basically just imagine that they're not there for the most part. And all the other hunters should make sure that they have the appropriate licenses, that their antler list harvest authorizations or tags are appropriate for that area. And everyone's using firearms. Like a big thing that I get asked these days is like, can I be on a deer drive with a crossbow? And the answer is no. You can only group deer hunt with firearm equipment. So at no point can any sort of group deer hunting, whether it's the archery season, whether it's the gun deer season and drives and stuff like that, can you group deer hunt if someone's using any sort of archery equipment?
Interesting. Good note there. Paul with a question. He's wondering, what are the resources people can use to determine what land is public and what land is private? I'll put a plug in for. I love my X Hunt app. I love that thing.
Yeah, Onyx Hunt.
Onyx Hunt. Yep.
Yeah. So, Onyx Hunt is a really good. It's a really good app. Obviously, I'm not sponsored by them or anything, but that'd be cool.
Yeah. Right.
But we do use it on our work phones. We worked really hard over the years to get approved. Like the game wardens were like, we want this app. Everyone's using Onyx Hunt. People can send us pins, or waypoints of where they find illegal hunting activities, or they can just send us like a waypoint saying, hey, is this a legal hunting area? And then I can use my phone and corroborate it with them. So Onyx Hunt is a good thing. And it sounds like it's just getting more fancier and every year. But Onyx Hunt is a good one. Another really good resource actually is the county websites. So almost every county in the state has a mapping system of the county lands, and they use like the tax parcels and stuff like that. And if you go to let's use Eau Claire County. So you type into Google, you go Eau Claire County GIS. So like George, Ida, Sam, GIS. That is like their mapping system, and it's interactive where you can look up landowners, you can look up property parcel numbers, you can look up addresses, and you can find out if it's private or public, owned by the state, owned by the county, and different stuff like that. So you got your Onyx Hunt, you have your Eau Claire County or your county GIS maps, and I know all the counties around here have them because I've used them. And then another option is the state of Wisconsin actually does have an interactive mapping system online. That's very similar to like the GIS that shows different properties, but it's a lot more specific to state land. So you can go on to our interactive mapping and you can find like the managed forest law, the MFL lands that are open to the public. And with our mapping system, when you click on those properties, it will show you like an actual map of the property, what's open, what's closed, what kind of wood is on it, like what kind of trees are on it. And then it also shows like contacts for the local foresters and stuff like that in case you have questions or you need to report a violation like harassment or something. So our state interactive maps, it's not just like MFL and like state land. It really has every kind of fishery area, wildlife area, state, DOT land. It's a pretty good map that you can search through too. So those are three of like the most common maps that I think are out there. It's definitely what I use as a game warden to, verify who owns what and where property lines are and different stuff, is using a combination of Onyx, county GIS, and the state interactive map online.
Yeah, I use my Onyx, I think, every time I'm out in the woods, just for property lines and it's tracking or something like that. Like all my stands are pinned on there too. So it's a game changer.
No, it's really good. And it's pretty accurate, but at the end of the day, you got to remember, like, you can't go to court with Onyx and be like, the property line shows this.
Mm-hmm.
None of these maps are like the true, because it's interactive, it's mobile, it's online. The only 100% way to tell what a property line is to have, a paid survey completed where they, do a bunch of fancy stuff and put stakes in the ground. So, those lines, like, I think they're very accurate, but just be mindful, maybe give it, a 10-yard buffer.
Mm-hmm.
If you're looking at, like, you're on county land, you want to hunt a property line, don't be 100% thinking that red line is the exact line. Give it a little buffer just so you're safe and you're not, you're being respectful of the private landowner, as well as it might just make it so there's no conflict if you're accidentally over that property line.
Yeah, we'll give a shout out to our guy surveyor Sam, because that's what he does.
Yeah,
Surveys those land.
he knows that guy knows what he's doing. That is it's a very in-depth process, and they do a good job of finding that true property line.
Exactly. Hey, Jake, I know with, deer rifle season coming up here in a couple of weeks and such, I don't know if you've run into this with bow season going on, or if you're starting to kind of see it here, because there were some deer units that changed, right, when it comes to the antlerless tags and what unit you could hunt into. But maybe a good reminder for anybody who's getting set to hit the woods for the deer rifle season. Some units have changed. Like, I know for me,
Correct.
I'm like in 110, if you will.
Correct. So all the central farmland zones stayed the same. So, like, most of southern Wisconsin and around here, western Eau Claire County, Dunn, all that kind of stuff. Chippewa's got the forest in the north. But any of, like, your classic central farmland zone, that's still the same. Like, you're just going to pull your Eau Claire County central farmland tags, doe tags, Trempealeau, buffalo, whatever. Any of the forest zones throughout the state. So there's the central forest zone, which starts in eastern Eau Claire County, goes down through Juneau and Adams area and stuff like that, Clark County, Jackson a little bit. So that central forest zone, as well as the northern forest, they went back to DMUs, deer management units. So if you haven't gotten to buy, like, a bonus antlerless tag yet, you haven't seen it. But if you go and buy one, you got to select your DMU. So it's a good way. The reason it came back is so that the state and the CDACs and the public can more interactively, I guess, control or work with those habitats and deer numbers in a smaller section versus just, like, the whole central forest. And this is the same with the north. So when you go up north, you just got to find your DMUs. I think you said like 110 or something.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, eastern Eau Claire County, I believe it's 201 is the DMU. So if you wanted to hunt does in, the Fairchild area, you'd have to go get a bonus antlerless tag, select private or public, but you would select the DMU for 201, and I think maybe Clark or Jackson is like 202. So you want to make sure you have that right number. Because just like when we were looking for county, when we check tags or check harvest authorizations, we're going to be looking for those numbers. If you're hunting in that Fairchild area, you got to have that 201. If you have a 110, obviously your antlerless tag isn't going to be valid there.
Mm-hmm. Jake, I want to go back to when we were talking about the deer drives and such, and you mentioned crossbows and not able to use archery equipment during those drives. During the rifle season, can you still go bow hunting and such, even though it's rifle season?
Yeah, no, that's a good specification. So the archery season, the crossbow season, and the gun deer seasons are all separate seasons that run concurrently, which means, like, they all are active at the same time. So anyone basically from September through January can use, their vertical bow or their crossbow and hunt, right through the gun deer season, right through the harvest, or excuse me, the antlerless only season and stuff like that. So those weapons are good. The gun is just only valid during a gun deer season. There is a lesser weapons rule in Wisconsin, which means that You could shoot a buck with your crossbow during November, and then you could, or during like the rut, and then you could also shoot another buck with your crossbow during the gun deer season, and register it on your gun tag, because it's called the lesser weapon, because a crossbow is lesser than a rifle. But it doesn't go the other way. You can't like shoot a buck with your rifle in November or in October and then count it as your archery tag. So yes, you can still archery hunt. And once the gun deer seasons are active, there's actually, I guess some more exemptions or some more allowances that you can utilize with that archery equipment. However, you do have to wear blaze orange still, during any gun deer season, doesn't matter what you're hunting. If you're hunting archery equipment during the muzzleloader season, you still have to wear blaze orange.
So this might be a stupid question, but say it's, opening weekend of the deer rifle season. Can I, if I have both of them, can I have my rifle and crossbow with me if I see, hunt both at the same time, or does it have to be one or the other?
There's nothing that necessarily restricts that.
Okay.
Right. So you're gonna want to. The big thing with that is that you're gonna want to make sure you have all your license are active and appropriate, as well as the gear you're using is accurate and appropriate, and the seasons are open. And I say all that because people do that. I've definitely brought my shotgun with me when I've bow hunted before, because I know there's turkeys that are going to come in.
Yep.
So like, there's nothing that restricts that. However, like, you got to make sure all your licenses are good and you're not using the wrong ammo, and there's a big difference, a big difference from what you're doing, per each one. So there's nothing that restricts it, but if you get checked, just don't get offended if the warden asks you some more clarifying questions than normal, because it's not usual. That's an unusual contact.
Right, exactly. Jake, good stuff as always. Jake's going to be hopping in studio coming up in a couple weeks here, right before the opener.
We'll sneak in right before.
Exactly. So I'm sure we'll have a lot more questions right before the opening weekend.
Stack them up. It's always fun to come in and go through a bunch of questions, especially, that one's going to be 2 days before the opener, 1 day before the old Orange Friday.
Yep.
So, if people got questions, or they're going through their licenses, they're going through the DMUs, they're going through their gear, and they just don't know, that's a great time. If you got them, we can go through it together.
Exactly. Well, dude, we appreciate the time this morning, bud. Enjoy the rest of the week. And if you do get out in the woods, best of luck this weekend, and we'll chat soon.
Yeah, no, appreciate it. You guys have a good one.
You got it. There you go. There's Jake Boakes, Conservation Warden for the state of Wisconsin.